You're watching the Mike Nelson Show. I want to thank everybody who's already subscribed to the channel. We have over 450 subscribers. Today, I got a very special guest. I got the band Faetooth. How you doing today, everyone?
Good. Pretty good.
So to start off, if you could say your name and your instrument, that way our listeners on the radio can know who they're listening to.
I'm Ra, and I play the drums.
My name is Ash, and I play guitar and I sing.
Ari, I also play guitar and sing.
And my name's Jenna, and I play guitar and also sing. I mean, I play bass guitar and also sing.
Sounds good. So how did the band start off? When did it all start out for the band? What year? What's the story behind that?
So we started in 2019. We've all been friends for a while. Different variations of lengths of friendships for some of us. But generally, we all grew up in the same area in our local music scene, and decided that finally we were gonna start a band together one day, and it just kind of organically grew from jamming in Raz's garage to what it is today.
All right, and where did the band name come from?
We kind of word jumbled. We had a list and we wrote, we all wrote words down that we felt we connected to. And we were like, well, we definitely want like one word, keep it pretty like memorable. That way it's like pretty easy to remember and easy for like a general idea. We didn't want to do like the blank, so just like Faetooth. We like the word teeth or tooth. I think we were thinking about like Faetooth, but there's already a project, so we were like Faetooth, why not?
And was the band a doom metal at the beginning, or was it what kind of genre was it when you first started out?
It was pretty doomy. We were experimenting at the time though, but yeah.
I was listening to an old demo that we did actually this morning that we just like recorded on one of our phones, and it sounded like quite thrashy, I would say. So we kind of harkened back more to like a lot of us grew up in like the DIY punk scene in LA, and I think we were like kind of more influenced by that in the beginning, and then it kind of like evolved into.
And talk to me about an Invocation EP. When was this recorded? This was 2019 when it was released, right? So this is one of the first recordings that the band had.
Yeah. So those 4 songs on the EP came out in I think December 2019, and at the time those were the only songs that we had. And looking back at recording that, I actually think we didn't really have we didn't go in like, oh, we're recording this cohesive piece of music. We're like, we need to get out these songs that we have so people can hear what we have. We were just kind of like anxious to get something out, and we were just starting to play shows, and it kind of, I think, just kind of took on its own life after that.
And was the band doing live shows at that time already before the EP came out?
We played a couple, like probably 2 at that point, maybe 3. Right before the pandemic ended, we like only played 4 or 5 shows. So right in between, we only had like a little time to promote the EP in person with our shows before, obviously, the pandemic happened.
And so during COVID, was the new album Remnants of Vessel written then during the COVID shutdown?
Yeah. Definitely a good portion of it was written during that time, and then there are pieces of the album that were written that very well could have ended up on the EP. They just weren't ready yet. So some songs that were before, and some songs that were finished like maybe a month or 2 right before we went to the studio in October 2021.
Now, with the Remnants of Vessel, I really like the album. It's a great album. Who produced this album? Where was it? Who produced it, and where was it recorded?
Our producer Joseph at Bear Jew Hobbit on Instagram helped us produce it. He came in to where we used to rehearse. I think it's closed now. I don't know if it's permanent or not, but Bedrock is most of the album. And he came in and we did like a couple demos, and he just like wanted to see how we interacted with each other and what like our end goal was. And we already had like a cohesive idea, and he really helped elevate it. He did a really great job. He did the mixing, the mastering, everything between, start to finish.
And how long did it take to record the album?
It was pretty brief. It took like between like the demos when we started for the like drum tracking, I think it was maybe about 3 months, like maybe a little under that.
And what was the most difficult aspect of recording this album? Do you think, for making this album? What do you think was the most difficult aspect?
Do you mean like production wise or like thematically?
Yeah.
I think thematically, writing the music or production, it could go any way. What would be the most difficult aspect?
Honestly, I thought going into it, like it would be way more difficult than I thought it would be. Like I was really nervous because it was our first time recording like an actual studio, opposed to the EP where it was like a home studio and like pretty lax. But I think it was more like in my head about like, oh my God, how are we gonna do this? Like we have this huge plan, and we have like, a very cohesive album that we want it to come across like one like conglomerate of a idea. And I feel like I was in my head more about that, but I think recording like start to finish, it was super fun, and I didn't have any like difficulty. There was nothing really scary. It was a very comfortable environment.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Raz, did you want to say something? I can tell she wanted to speak.
I think
Sorry.
she's trying to
I also,
Yeah.
Ari, I'm sorry. I have to put the phone so close to my head because I can't really hear you very well, Ari. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. It's hard to answer though because it's big. I feel like I mean, like what I can talk about mostly, I think would be like the lyrically and production wise, like what I think was most important for me, and like I think we all like kind of went into it like we had all contributed like very much so. I would say to like each song, like even if one person brought like essentially like a full written song like with lyrics and chords and like even like other people's parts, like kind of like an idea for other people. Like I think we all add so much to each one, and so I think like the collaboration was really essential for the production of it. And like I think in terms of like lyrics and stuff, like I think we're all able to kind of like build, I don't want to say like build a world, but like have like a sense of like themes we're trying to play with, and like under what sort of like different types of like playing with narratives and things like that. I'm not being very articulate right now, but I think just like us being able to come at it from like a similar perspective and like with a similar theme and aesthetic in mind, that was really important for me.
Now let's talk about the lyrical themes for the album. Who writes most of the lyrics for Faetooth, and where do you get inspiration from?
So between us three, as far as me, Raz, and Ari, we all contribute a good chunk of lyrics. So I would say it's pretty divvied up between us three.
And where do you get inspiration for writing these songs? Is it different things about life? What would you say you get most inspiration from?
It's definitely like a mix of art, literature, different forms of media, films, and in a mix with real life experiences.
Now there was a shift to more of a black metal sound here on this new album. Can you tell me some influences and why you guys went into that direction?
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of that influence on some songs. I think it just naturally came out. I, as far as like actual band influences, I feel like I can't pull something out of the top of my head. I think it just kind of like came out that way. Um, just toying with those kind of atmospheres and obviously more of the tremolo picking. That's just something kind of snuck its way into some of the songs. Um, I don't know. We definitely enjoy some of those kinds of bands, and
Hmm.
it's also incorporated some of the shrieking and those kinds of vocals as well.
Yeah, I
I,
mean, I
I,
think something that's like, oh, sorry, were you gonna say something,
no,
Ari?
no,
Yeah,
no,
I was actually
you
muted,
go,
so you can go ahead.
you go, you go.
You sure?
Yeah, you
Okay,
can go
thank
ahead,
you.
Ash.
Okay,
I'll,
thank you.
I'll go after.
Yes, follow up. Piggybacking off of that. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I think like I think like what's interesting about like um, our songwriting is that like I think we all come from like very different. I mean, I think we all have like similar tastes ultimately, but like we all do add like different elements of stuff. I don't know. I don't think we like approached it with like a specific style in mind. Like I think as we saw all the pieces, all the songs together, we could like kind of find more like through lines, and like Joseph was definitely very helpful with like coming up with like motifs. I think that like were strewn throughout the album, like even like between songs or like in the interludes and things like that. Like I would say specifically with like noise and like ambient and atmospheric sounds, that was like a really cool way of making it a cohesive project. Um, I mean, like speaking for me personally, like I grew up listening to a lot of metal just because like my dad was very into black metal when I was a kid. And so like even though I don't like actively listen to it on my own now. Like I think it's just like a part of the way I approach things. But then I feel like Jenna and Ari really have like a good sense of how to write something like heavy and sludging, and like Raw definitely like carries that and like holds it down in a like a technically good way. And so I don't know. I think like it just was kind of like what arose, and like I don't know, but I think like we tried to not stick to any one genre at all. Like I feel like it was almost like the opposite. I mean, if you guys agree.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna add like I think mostly like with the parts that I wrote that like are considered more like black metal, we're definitely more like black gaze influenced, like bands like Oathbreaker and stuff like that. Very like kind of not essentially black metal, but just kind of that more like reverberated, atmospheric gaze side of it. Those were at least my writings. I know Joseph like really helped, like Ash said, with those more like essentially like black metal-esque parts, but like in my mind, they came out like perfectly between like his direction and like he saw like the end picture and how everything would work. But like I would say one band off the top of my mind that like Jenna and I both really listened to a lot and had in like our LP album inspiration playlist was like Regana, because they really toyed with more like not classic black metal, like excessive like drumming and stuff. Like we definitely wanted to tinker around with that. We just felt like it wasn't essentially appropriate on some of the songs to do like, blast beats and stuff. So I think more of that black gaze, shoegaze s side came out more with those like tremolo picking parts and stuff like that, those motifs.
So talk to me about a couple songs that stood out for me. My favorite track was Saturn Devouring His Son. What is this song about, and how was it written musically? It's almost a 10-minute song, I think 9 minutes or so. Can you tell me about this song?
Yeah. So that song, um, the lyrics are written by Raz, and I think not funny, but I think it's interesting that the lyrics are so sparse compared to how big and grand the song is, because it's only like 4 lines or something like that. And that from Raz is, I think, a direct allusion to the Goya painting. Raz is like an art history nerd, scholar. And as far as instrumentation, I think that song I actually wrote some of the like the main verse, like arpeggio part and chorus part. I think like in the dead of quarantine, like 2020, December, I wrote it like on the floor. And it was like, you know what, these lyrics kind of like, they kind of fit. And there was no like, oh, this is going to be a 10-minute song. It just kind of like came together. And I think me and Raz met up, I think, in our garage like a week or two after that. I was like, hey, like I did this thing with your lyrics. And then eventually we all were finally able to come together and work on the song. And then, like I said, I have no idea how it became a 10-minute song. That's we just kept adding parts, and the slow drone really contributes to the length of it. But it's definitely a song we're very proud of.
It was a perfect conclusion, I think, to the album.
And was there a violin on this song? I heard there's orchestral part on this song. Did somebody play violin on this?
Our friend Ari Bone plays cello, who we've been friends with.
So it's a cello then?
Probably for years. Yeah, it's a
Okay.
cello.
Yeah.
They really did a great job. Like, honestly, I think we like recorded the song, just like the instrumentals, and then I sent over this very rough, lightly mixed edit, and they're like, okay, well, I can come in this weekend. And we were like, oh, like, okay, great. And they just like, I don't know if they wrote it in a day or they just completely like improvised, but they like exceeded our vision. They really pulled it together. We had a lot of trust in them, and I think they knew what we wanted to go for. And the tension that the cello holds, I think, is a really nice start to finish, like I said earlier, through line. I love using that term now, like always off the top of my head, but the album with the intro Naissance starts with cello, and then like it's kind of crept in there with the second interlude, and then, you know, the one before Saturn, After Strange Ways, Moribund, was just essentially just straight cello. And I think that was one of the parts that they play within Saturn, so it's just really a more stripped back, like foreboding cello part that they just completely like pulled it out and completely winged it and did an amazing job. And playing live with them was so fun.
Yeah, I
recently,
really
Yeah.
Sorry, I feel like the cello really added, like without just like a new dimension to like the sound, and like really augmented everything. I don't know. I think like kind of going along with like our themes that are a little bit more like, I don't know, something like we talk a lot about like biblical allegories and like I don't know, like paintings. Like I think like adding like a classical element like sonically was also really important, and it was just really great to have like Ari a part of the project.
Now, another song that I really liked was She Cast a Shadow. Can you talk to me about that one?
Yeah. I try to think about its history. I think lyrically, I wrote that. I remember I was walking a dog, and the lyrics kind of just stemmed from another poem, and I think over time, I took something, I think, from Raz that she contributed. But that song is like, I think, one of our most like collaborative, like musically. The beginning starts with like a piece that Ari wrote, like the very intro, and then I think we just came up with, you know, the main verse, which is that heavy kind of verse. And yeah, it was kind of like I feel like it was a quick song that
Yeah,
we
we
wrote.
wrote
Like
it and like rewrote it in like 10 minutes, I think.
I think it was like one of the quickest songs you wrote, and also it is one of our shorter songs, but
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where like we kind of have something in your back pocket, and then one day you're jamming, and you're like, oh, let's make the soup, and and then there's your soup.
Yeah, it was really fun to write. I think it's personally like I love playing that song so much, and I think when we've been playing it in the past, I think it pumps us up like a lot, and I think that really comes through like even in the recording. Like it just gets us so hyped up just because it's so like, you know, slow at the start and you're like, ooh, what's gonna happen? And then, the tension's there, it builds, and then it's like that hard, heavy riff that we wrote like, really quickly, rewrote that, just jamming essentially. And then that arpeggio part, I think, was the last part we wrote. That was more the, I think that part didn't take the longest, but I think it definitely like that piece was last, and it was a piece that was missing to really complete that tension. And then our producer Joseph added that like choral, it's not Gregorian chanting, I think it's just like a synth in between, and I think that really helped the song to have like emotion all the way through. And not saying that like our other songs don't have emotion, but I mean, like, I think it just really throughout that song, it just everything was like building, building, building to the end where it's just like a doo doo, and then it just ends, which we've never like done that before. Usually we like fade out. So I think that song overall just like gets me at least like personally really hype. I love that song very much.
It's a great song. I really liked it. Any other, as a band, any other songs or tracks that you might have liked from this album that you think stood out for yourselves?
I don't think I could pick a favorite. They're like my baby. The entire album I think is just like a being on its own. Like I don't pick the songs apart. I don't think I'm able to, because in my mind it's just like one long movie.
Now, as a band, what genre do you consider yourselves as? I mean, you could say it's doom metal, but what would be the genre that you would pick for yourself as a band?
That's a tough
So
one.
yeah, obviously we tread the lines of doom metal, but I don't know, like I always feel like experimental or like alternative. I know alternative metal is kind of already like its own genre, and it's kind of very niche to what it sounds like. But like experimental metal kind of fits us because like, who's to say like we'll always have doom riffs or whatever. I mean, we really like that, but um, yeah, I think experimental metal works if you want to consider us that.
I've said in the past, sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Go ahead.
I've said in the past just experimental doom metal because I feel like most of the riffs that we start off on are either like in the doom metal realm. Like Jenna said, like that's not something that will be in every song or whatever. I think they bloom out, into each song has its own like little shadowing genre, I think. But I would say either experimental doom metal or just doom gaze, because I feel like doom gaze is pretty general in its own like world.
What would be the best part about playing live as a band?
You want to go first?
Well, I think it's really interesting to take songs that you recorded live and kind of transcribe them into like kind of take on a new life each time. I mean, sometimes you play a song so many times and you're like, okay. Sometimes you get to mess around with lyrics or vocal tones, whatever. Just try things. But also just playing live is just fun. Interacting with the crowd and with each other on stage is really fun. Sometimes, you're fucking up and you're like, well, guess I'll just do a little dance. It's just to make up for it.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that definitely like my first thought was interacting with each other, and like of course the catharsis of like, I could have a bad week and we're like playing a show, and it's nice to just like let that all out. Like I learned harsh vocals, like it was my New Year's resolution last year just for this album, and it's like that's the best part of just like screaming with Jenna and like screaming over Ash. I think that's the like honestly best part is just like letting it all out and interacting with each other.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like when I play the drums, I feel like, especially with Faetooth, I get to express all the like emotions that I've kept in for a long time, and I just let it all out when I play, give it my all, and I don't know, it's just a very good feeling.
I like picking an outfit.
Yes.
No, I'm kidding. I do love singing.
That's serious. Yeah, it's true.
I'm sorry, I was truly kidding. No, I think like no, but I think like singing at our album release show afterwards, I was reflecting on it, and I realized like how much a lot of those songs like, mean when you, I don't know, being able to like sing them and like so theatrically, you know what I mean? It feels very, yeah, it's like freeing and cathartic.
Yeah, the
You're with your buddies too.
My mic was off. Anybody else want to add to that? I heard a voice going there.
Oh, I just said like, yeah, like you have your whole like theatrical performance, and you know how that like connects with the audience. I know Jenna was talking about, I wasn't at that show, but Jenna was talking about like watching Boris and like how it was this really wonderful performance, and I just like, I hope people look at us and they're like, wow, like that was like a whole show.
Experience.
I feel like I'm at a theater or something. Like I really want, when we start playing more like shows again in the new year, to really have like a whole like thing. I don't know, without being like too cheesy. I don't know.
Now talking about shows. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's also just like, I think we all have like a good sense of humor about shows as well. Like Jenna and I always do like this jig, and like I feel like it's very relaxing. I think being able to, like obviously our shows matter and we take them very seriously and we rehearse a lot before and stuff. But like I think also knowing that it's like something that we want to be doing and something that we enjoy doing is I think my favorite part about it. Because like even if we play a show, we all like, whether we feel very confident in it or not very confident in it, I feel like it's always something that's like fun to like debrief and connect over afterwards.
Just like being together is really nice, and like experiencing that together on stage.
Now talking about shows, is there any like tour plans or big shows coming up maybe for next year that you could share with the audience?
Not at the moment, unfortunately. We are currently booking though. So if any bookers, at least in LA, want to hit us up for SoCal, you can DM us at Faetooth on Instagram.
Yeah, now, unfortunately, there's no big plan of a big tour or anything, but
yeah, not yet.
I mean, you'll know when there's something.
All right, so I want to thank everybody for coming on the show today. I really, really appreciate the band for coming on today.
Thank you
for having us.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you.